Hello friends, good morning. My name is Akash I am a coordinator at Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge and PhD scholar at Delhi University. Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is founded by Professor Karunyakara sir. His idea behind the institution to provide academic space to scholars, professors and doctors who are engaged in the field of Dalit studies. Today we have our 24th of lecture. And this lecture is a part of a series which we started on 14th of April 2025 on the occasion of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Jayanti. Today, Professor Karunyakara sir going to chair this session, and I welcome him and I request Dr. Darshana to please introduce Professor Leela Karunyakara sir.
Thank you, Akash. Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara is the former Vice Chancellor and founder of Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. He is the author of the History of Dalit Identity and Modernization of Buddhism. After completing his PhD from JLU, New Delhi, Dr. Karunyakara joined as assistant professor in the School of Ambedkar Studies, Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, a Central University, Lucknow. He introduced the Dalit History course in MA History program. He was instrumental in introducing 50% reservation for SC/ST students in the BBAU admission. He founded Ambedkar University Dalit Students Union in 2000 and Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar Central University SC/ST Teachers Association in 2006. He joined as director cum professor in the Babasaheb Ambedkar Sidhu-Kanu Murmu Dalit and Tribal Studies Center, Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya. He held post of Dean of School of Culture and former Vice Chancellor of the University. This is a brief introduction of the respected chair. Please welcome sir to this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Darshana. I welcome Professor Leela Karunyakara sir for today's lecture. And now I request Ms. Suhas Kamlakar to please introduce and welcome our today's guest.
Hello, good morning. Jai Bhim everyone. Myself Suhas Kamlakar. I would like to introduce the speaker today. So Dr. Nandkishor More is a founder faculty of Interdisciplinary School of Earth and Environmental Sciences of BBA Central University, Lucknow, UP, India, when he joined as an assistant professor in the year 1997. Since then, his area of teaching and research includes environmental taxonomy, pollution, natural ecosystem and biodiversity, sustainable development, eco-restoration and conservation, and problems of global and Indian environment. He has obtained PG and research degree in the area of developmental biology from Department of Zoology, Biotechnology, University of Pune. He is recipient of Graduate Aptitude Test in Engineering GATE, which is GATE, Government of India in Biological Sciences for Research in 1992. Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Government of India in Life Sciences for research in 1992, NET for lectureship in 1992, UNO, Tokyo and UNESCO ICTP fellowship in 2006 and 2007, IRD France Travel Fellowship in 2015 for pre-COP21 Scientific Conference. He was a member of Board of Management BBAU, Lucknow, India for 2 terms, Finance Committee and Building Committee for 1 term, and currently member of Academic Council at BBO Lucknow. Visiting scientist at Denmark, Sarawak, Malaysia, Northern Cyprus, Turkey, Colombo, Sri Lanka, ICTP, Darshana, Italy, Quebec City, Canada, Bangkok, Thailand, Morocco, UNESCO headquarters, Paris, France. He has published around 60 publications in journals, proceedings, and edited chapters for his credit. He has delivered more than 45 invited lectures in academic staff staff colleges in India. He has also contributed on environmental issues in DD and Air and BBC Radio. We are happy to have you, sir, for our talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Suhas Kamlakar. I welcome Professor Moresa. And today is Professor Moresa going to deliver his lecture on Constituent Assembly Debate, Making of Indian Constitution. So I request Professor Moresa to please deliver his lecture. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Akash and Suhas, for introduction. Thank you, Professor Karunyakara, for this extended opportunity to share my ideas, particularly on the Constituent Assembly debates and the making of Constitution of India. It's very topical to say, because in a couple of days from now, we will be remembering our Constitution Day, that is 26 November, and today we are on 22nd November. The most interesting about part of our Indian Constitution, as people talk about, that the way it was formed, the process that enabled it to be formed, and its operation. Because while we have 75 years of Constitution in force, it is mandatory for all of us to really look back on its historicity, its operational issues, and what was the vision of the constitution framers. But today, what I will try to discuss with you is, that how there is Ambedkarian perspective, because of the chairman of the drafting committee of Constitution of India. So there was one that, I was thinking that, let us go back to the historicity of this document, what we call it as a Constitution of India. There are many things people know in general about this, but historically speaking, its timeline starts, when the cabinet mission plan was ensured. It was brought to India in the discussion forum of the political formation then. And then, after that, what went on was formation of the Constituent Assembly. And each and every part of that historical event, has a lot of contestations, you see. The first one is that how the Constituent Assembly was formed, and how now we call it as made chief architect of our Constitution and the chairman of the drafting committee enters it. That's one part, which needs to be talked about. And then whether it is the Constitution from the top to bottom, or from bottom to top, or or it was a consensus. There are three different contestations, you see. One is that whether it was the idea put forth on someone else, or it was through consensus, or it was the feeling or the aspirations of the people of this country. But the document as such is really worth revisiting time and again, not only for the citizens of this country, but for the scholars of the history, social science, public administration, law and governance, and so on and so forth. So as a student of this Ambedkar studies, I thought that let me go back and have it seen through different eye now. Now, one interesting contestation is that if you look at the timeline, that, pre-independence. And then what I would do is, I had a privilege to go through a few of these articles which were published, That there was one article which I had happened to see. It was published in 2022 by Arnit Shani. And he talks about the people and the making of Constitution of India. There was one article published in the Historical Journal. It makes a historical inquiry about how people have also taken into account their aspirations. Now, how the Constitution is from and what were the interventions of the people of this country for making a Constitution. Even from the margins of the society also, there were aspirations with the Constitution ought to have taken into account, and that they have been taken into account. That's what that Shan is. He was basically from a department of South Asian Studies at Haifa University in Israel. But the article got published in the historical journal of the Cambridge University Press. And it gave a fairly good understanding about how the people and the making of constitution of India became a kind of meeting point. Second thing which I happened to go through was of Ramchandra Guha, when he had analyzed two speeches of 4th November 1948, when the first draft constitution was made, and the last speech, which is considered the iconic speech in the Constituent Assembly. But he did not make mention of the first speech, which I give more credence to, because that the 17th December 1946 speech, which is a maiden speech delivered by Dr. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly. So friends, ladies and gentlemen, what I will try to do is, I would really not go into that, how he's entered into, but with some few references to Dr. Ambedkar's entry into Constituent Assembly itself was a big event, historically. It's good to imagine, that if he did not have entered the Constituent Assembly, or if the Jessore-Khulna constituency, which was pre-partition, was a part of India, and after partition it became a part of then Pakistan. But after that, that you see, because the mandate is the cabinet mission plan wanted to have that the constitution should be prepared, taking into account the aspirations of the people and in the most transparent manner. That was the basic mandate which the cabinet mission plan had put forth. And thanks to the claimant Attlee, that when he realized that the moment the plan of partition came into picture, the place from where Dr. Ambedkar was a member of the Constituent Assembly, it was not a part of India. So therefore, he was not he was not an elected member of the Constituent Assembly to be part of the Constituent Assembly of India. So therefore, he had his own intervention, and he went to Clement Attlee for this injunction, and then he said that it is how it has happened. And then it was referred to then the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Then he had agreed to bring Dr. Ambedkar into the Constituent Assembly because of his, one, that he was representing the sizable mass of these people, one. Second, he had good ideas and concepts which were all inclusive in nature the country needed. And he was having the most legal understanding about the issues of society, history, culture, and epistemology of the new knowledge system. Then, so his entry therefore became very important, and people have talked about it, because just look at the situation of pre-independence, or on the eve of independence, we had almost 90 million population, and 552 this were not part of the British dominion, So therefore, you see, the small what we call them, therefore it was a different situation altogether. But the fact which Anish Shani names that the people and the making of constitution, he says that the peoples have interacted in the whole process of formation, and therefore he cites many archival examples. But then if you go back to the timeline, it's very interesting to state that, one, that what we know as a preamble of our constitution is what somebody has already contested some time ago, that, the preamble as we read out today, is it the preamble of Dr. Ambedkar? And one gentleman, he had talked about it, that Dr. Akash Singh Rathore, he talks about Dr. Ambedkar's preamble. And in that, he makes it clear that there is a lot of blurb associated with his contribution. And therefore, you see, he says that, the whole authority of the Constitution, its framing, therefore is categorically, and the credit goes to Dr. Ambedkar for his wholehearted effort in making. So, and he writes that how his preamble talks about and how. But this is part 2 of my talk. But the first one is the debates of the Constituent Assembly, which I would like to focus on initially. And then second one is the part of the Constitution, and third is how now, after 75 years of independence, what are those? Needless to state that so many things come into picture in between, and people are already trying to deviate from the very agenda of the Constitution. Now, the first is that Constituent Assembly debates. The formation of Constituent Assembly was in a timeline was very interesting because when we say that it had to be formed, why it had to be formed, what was so important for it to be formed, and if it was not formed, then what would have happened? So the first timeline is that, when we look at it, it's very interesting. It brings to our notice the issues which were pivotal, but which were probably not considered important. So when the Cabinet Mission Plan was brought into the Indian Dominion then, that it was the first time the Constituent Assembly met on 16th May 1946, and it had almost to the tune of 13 committees, and on the Mr. Bhimrao was appointed as an advisor to the Constituent Assembly on 11th December 1946. So that means Constituent Assembly was formed. It met on 16th May 1946. Dr. Rajendra Prasad and H.C. Mukherjee, they were appointed as the Vice President on 11 December 1946. On the 9th December, Bhimrao was appointed as the advisor. He was a civil servant. Now see, the most interesting part is in the Constituent Assembly was the first and foremost was the passing of the objective resolution. And Jawaharlal Nehru had moved the aims and objective resolution of the Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution of India. That it was necessary. Cabinet Mission made it clear that you need to have your Constitution brought in the form of a draft. It should be brought with the debate and discussion. It should be very transparent, and it should take into account the aspirations of the people more so. That was mandate, you see. And then therefore, keeping that mandate into account, you see, the first objective resolution, aims and objectives resolution was moved by Jawaharlal Nehru on 13 December. And to bring to your notice that, from bringing up the first aims and objective resolution from December 46 to 22nd January 1947, by the time when the objective resolution was passed, it was passed unanimously. And this is where you see very interesting thing is that is where, this time frame needs to be revisited now. There are many contestations, but the most interesting one is of the talk with Dr. Ambedkar. I bring Dr. Ambedkar here because knowing fully well that now he is part of this Constituent Assembly now. Because when Pandit Nehru talked to the BGK, then the Prime Minister of Bombay province, and of course he was not having a good rapport with Dr. Ambedkar for issues related to the societies, social political issues. But then he was reluctantly, he was made to be ready, and then he ensured that Dr. Ambedkar get elected from Bombay province. But then, there was a foot-in-mouth situation for the Indian National Congress. Then because Sardar Patel had said that we have not only closed doors, but even we have closed the windows. And it is foot-in-mouth issue that, now the BGK, as a Congress gentleman, he ensured that he gets elected from the Bombay province. So this is second issue that which I just wanted, and this happened during this period. And now let me come back to this that when we say that that objective resolution was adopted by Constituent Assembly by 22nd. Prior to that is where Dr. Ambedkar delivered his first maiden speech. Now, what is the nature of the Constituent Assembly? What was the composition of the Constituent Assembly? The Constituent Assembly was basically a body of people. Either they were elected body of the people through various provinces, and they were representatives. The nature of the Constituent Assembly was that, majority of them belonged to either they were legal luminaries, they were good social reformers, they were philosophers, they were activists. So therefore, the corpus of the body of the Constituent Assembly were not haysayers or naysayers. They were people who were concerned. They were people who were articulate about their own ideas. And it is this body of the people, they had entrusted the task of preparation of draft to Dr. Ambedkar. Itself was, it speaks many things. It makes it very vocal to everyone that why he was made then. Why he? Why not elsewhere? Because that is where, and then when he delivers his first maiden speech, he makes it clear that he said, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to speak. And he said that, if at all, because he said that 22 people were listed prior to me. So my turn, if at all would come, it will come tomorrow afternoon. And he said, I'm still not prepared. This is the 17th December 1946 speech of Dr. Ambedkar. And he says that he brings into discussion so many points of inclusive nature. Now, the first foremost, that the objective resolution, he was saying that there were two issues. One, and he divides the whole objective resolution into two parts. The most interesting part of the Constituent Assembly debates is that most of the debates were there in a very articulate form. But what mattered most for the debates to get enriched was the linguistics and the vocabulary and the diction which Dr. Ambedkar was possessing at that point of time to express his ideas. It is his authoritative linguistic expression had made all the points succinct and clear to the Constituent Assembly time and again. But he was arguing. Like even that's why, because arguments were there not only from his side, he was proposing many points put forth. Sometimes they were agreement, sometimes they were disagreement, there was a debate. This was the nature of the Constituent Assembly. Unlike probably we talk about the assemblies today, where the kind of discussion which was going on in framing of Indian Constitution need to be underlined that the debates and discussions had tremendous academic, intellectual, legal, and value in terms of inclusive characteristics of the Indian society was concerned. This was one. Secondly, there were other parallel issues also going on simultaneously. While the debates were going on, there were points which were raised by people. There was a heated argument also. There were a couple of instances which I will bring it to your notice now. That even there was argument which was against, Dr. Ambedkar's proposal most of the time. Dr. Ambedkar anticipated many things, and in the Constituent Assembly debates, if you see those, there were so many debates, but I'll focus on a few of them now because of the time frame. That at time, Dr. Ambedkar expected much more from the scholarship of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, because being a scholar of good stature then. But he realized that many times, he was not able to contest the way that Dr. Ambedkar was proposing. So there were points which in the first talk that he was talking about, in the first speech which Dr. Ambedkar delivered, he says that I anticipated many things from Jawaharlal Nehru to say many things on these issues. The first issue that they talked about, that what kind of constitution that the country should have for, a country should go for. What kind of structure should it have? What will be its narration? What will be its narratives to the public? And then he brings that objective resolution that we'll have our constitution, which will take into account the aspirations of the people. What were they? Now, just before that, we had illiteracy, we had population exposure, we had issues related to the economy. The World War I and World War II had just closed. Then the poverty was brazenly striking, poverty was existing then. Now the issue is, under that situation, many people would have thought that let these people come up with their constitution and let's see whether it works or do not. Like there are many people who had apprehensions whether such kind of situation would be there and whether if at all the position which the Constituent Assembly is taking, the product or the instrument that they will be giving to the society, whether it will ever work or not. That kind of apprehensions were also there at that point of time. Historically, there were references made to this. I'm not going to go into those details, but I'll just tell you that what happened when one of the scholars, Dr. Daktode, in his one of his write-up, he analyzed Dr. Ambedkar's speeches in the Constituent Assembly and their significance. It was published by Bhashya publisher, and see that under the scheme provided by the Cabinet Mission Plan, it was necessary to draft Indian Constitution, and therefore it was a challenge given to us by Lord Birkenhead, who was the Secretary of State for India in British government. So in the House of Commons also there were apprehensions whether the instrument which will come out from such kind of deliberations would ever succeed. That kind of apprehensions were also raised in the House of Commons. But then, let me go back to this Constitution Day. Before we talk about 26 November, let me just tell you that the second debate was took place, when Dr. Ambedkar was trying to put, because most of the drafts which were ready after this objective resolution was unanimously passed on 22nd January. But just 6 months after that, there was a partition plan was declared by Lord Mountbatten. And then we had national flag by 22nd July. And then when he was sworn in as the first law minister on 3rd August 1947, then we had this CLA, what was Legislative Assembly was replaced by Constituent Assembly. So there was a technical difference, the Central Legislative Assembly and Constituent Assembly. Because after we became independent and therefore, we had this drafting committee, then Dr. Ambedkar technically became the chairman on 29th August 1947. And the first draft constitution which was prepared by drafting committee was on 21st February 1948. Two important events took place that despite H.C. Mukherjee earlier, who was the vice president along with Dr. Rajendra Prasad, V.T. Krishnamachari was also elected as the second vice president. It was on 16 July 1940. Now let us come back to the discussion on the Constituent Assembly that when the first draft constitution was prepared by drafting committee, it was submitted on 4th November 1948. And now it is here, you see, that the second speech which Dr. Ambedkar delivers, and from the first speech where he had already had number of apprehensions about what he was anticipating in the objective resolution, which were not taken into account. But then, in the second, while he makes it clear, which naturally he says that, in the second lecture which he delivered on 4th November 1947, when the draft was submitted, and that is where that second speech which Dr. Ambedkar delivers, it has been analyzed by three scholars. One is by Guha himself. First, only two speeches of Dr. Ambedkar he had analyzed in the Makers of Modern India, whereas Dr. Daktode has done justice to by adding one more, that is the maiden speech of 17 December 1946. Now, these three important speeches, the last one is when he submits it. Now, why the debate were there? Debate is very necessary part of any democracy. particularly when the assembly is of the nature of the Constituent Assembly. Naturally, debate is paramount. Now, what were the aspirations of the members of the people when the articles were being discussed and debated? Now, let me bring it to your notice that, most of the arguments. Now, one hot debate took place between K.M. Munshi and Dr. Ambedkar, and we all know the historical background of K.M. Munshi, that he was a staunch follower of M.K. Gandhi, as Dr. Ambedkar was antithetical to most of his ideas for the way he was presenting. Secondly, most of the things which K.M. Munshi was proposing in the Constituent Assembly, that it was realized that the word sedition, which was there in the 1935 Constitution of India Act, was deleted by K.M. Munshi. That was the argument people said earlier in the Constituent Assembly when the draft was made. But he was a very small leader of that time, but he was supported by M.P. Gandhi. So therefore, what he was proposing was indirectly the aspirations of probably Mr. M.K. Gandhi. Now that is wherein the debates were of different kind, because he would always come up with some new points. Sometimes the members were raising the objection based on the mythology, myths, and also the social customs and arguments. As Dr. Amartya Sen says, that argumentative Indian, the arguments also there in the Constituent Assembly. But how Dr. Ambedkar tackled them is very interesting. And how it became. So what, to my analysis of the speeches which he delivered in the Constituent Assembly, it makes it very clear that many times you see that the last speech which he delivered was probably, if it was a game changer, then the 17th December 1946 lecture which Dr. Ambedkar delivered just after the objective resolution was passed was the beginning of game changing. And that is how you see then the situation, the political ideas of the Indian National Congress, and then many other political formation, including the Muslim League, were also part of it. Now let me come back to that second point, that how he started changing his argument. Now in one of the speech which Dr. Ambedkar, while he delivers, that he says very clearly that, and I quote, that two things are very important for any nation to stand. And then he says, and that is how, the 6 preambular characteristics which Dr. Ambedkar provides to this Indian Constitution, particularly the liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, are few of them to talk about. And even his preamble probably is therefore it is very characteristics feature of Dr. Ambedkar. That it is, had he not been very instructive on these issues, then the 6 preambular characteristics which he states, that liberty, equality, fraternity, 1. 2, that he also talks about the justice and dignity. Now, to this we can state it very, very simply, that many people have talked about in a different way. But how he could have said it, that if you say that what is great about person, or what is great about a nation, the preamble also makes it very clear, and this starts very clear. So, for example, what is the dignity? That no man can be grateful to the cost of his honor. No man can be, I quote, no man can be grateful at the cost of his honor. No woman can be grateful at the cost of her chastity. And no nation can be grateful at the cost of its liberty. This is his preamble, which he makes it clear. So therefore, you see, I must bring it to your, meaning I consider that Dr. Ambedkar's 3 important speeches were basically warnings. Warnings for what? That he characterized the preamble in the manner, as I said, in terms. And also, if you compare him with the 14th century.
Professor More, sorry to interrupt you. Could you repeat those three statements?
Yeah,
That's valuable, so that the participants could note down. I request all the participants to note down those three statements, which are very valuable, and it's a contribute to building your character. So please,
exactly.
slowly you repeat it. We could note it. Yeah, please.
Sure. Am I very fast?
No. You are not a fast. But to understand, you are not a fast. For writing, it needs to be a little bit slow.
Little bit.
Only these three statements. After that, you could go with your speed of talking.
Yeah,
you are not a fast. That's understandable.
The first argument that he makes, which also becomes a part of Indian preamble later on.
You are referring to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, right?
Yeah, I'm referring to him only. And in the preamble, he states very clearly, and I quote, "No man can be grateful at the cost of his honor. No woman.
No man is grateful.
No man can be grateful at the cost of his honor.
No man can be grateful at the cost of his honor. Yes.
No woman. No woman can be grateful at the cost of her chastity.
Can be grateful, at the cost of
her chastity.
Yeah.
And no nation can be grateful at the cost of its liberty.
It's a liberty. Yeah. No nation can.
This emphasizes his preambular characteristics of liberty, which I'll explain at the later phase.
Yeah,
liberty,
sure.
Liberty, equality, and fraternity, which I would experience later on. But this is one warning. I must state here that it was, and this warning could also be his warnings to nation, his warning to the Constituent Assembly while he was debating the draft constitution can be taken into various accounts, but there were many contestations which he was making at the same time. One, which can be compared historically with the 14th century Arabian philosopher or historian Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun, he had in his kitab Al-Ibar, he is very well respected in the Europe. He is an Arabian philosopher. Ibn Khaldun, like Ibn Battuta, Ibn Khaldun is also for his warnings. He was a 14th century Arab historian, which is very well read. And he was warning about history, politics, equality, religion, and so on and so forth, as early as 14th century. So Dr. Ambedkar's warnings to the Constituent Assembly, particularly while he was characterizing the nature of the aspirations of the people, with the frame and the terms which he is referring, probably can be equated with the Ibn Khaldun's warnings to the history. And that's how, meaning we can also say, and in his speeches, so his versions of warning could also be taken into account, that he was cautious about it, And that's why, I consider that his warnings they were there even then. But while there is one analysis about his preamble, which Dr. Akash Singh Rathod made in Ambedkar's preamble, History of Constitution of India, which was published in 2020, that to ensure that who is the actual author of the Constitution of this India, because the debates makes it very clear. But there was so much of blur which were associated. So Akash made it clear that he said that I want to make an attempt to borrow from its blur and also to establish that Dr. Ambedkar's irrefutable authorship of preamble and the claim that then given to the substance and analyze the 6 characteristics which are basically preambular concepts. What are those? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and along with these 2 systems of dignity and the nation. So these are the 6 preambular concepts, which were basically, because of this, he considered that the preamble is of Dr. Ambedkar, and because of that, he considered that there is the authorship of Constitution, if at all, it is to be given to anybody, and that is to be irrefuted is to the Dr. Ambedkar. That's what the whole volume talks about, but that I'm not going to go into detail. There's another topic of discussion. Now let me come back to the next point. Now, there are almost 3 years of deliberations between December 1946 to November 1949. let me bring to your notice that, Constitution Day, when we are now, there are two different situations today. That why India took a lot of time for it to remember 26 November as a Constitution Day. From 1969, we were having it only as a law day. And it was the Supreme Court Bar Association President, Mr. L.M. Singhvi. We had association with him. He came to our university when Dr. Kennedy was here. And we had discussion also before him, myself and Dr. Karunyakara, we had a discussion with L.M. Singhvi also. Till then, it was basically the red letter day, it was the law day, national law day. But it was only from 26th November 2015 onwards, we are officially remembering 26th November as the Constitution Day. But friends, it's very, sometimes, it is irony that, most of the countries of the world, including a very small country in Europe like Andorra, is having its own constitution and celebrating Constitution Day much more with the same valor as any national day. Whereas it took us a lot of time for us to really recall, remember, and gratify the labor, the efforts of the framers of this constitution of this country. So there are two important things which are very interesting, that, American Constitution came into picture in 1787. But the separation of the powers of the American Constitution were also approved and adopted on 26 November 1787. So there is a similarity, and there is one author who had already talked about, the similarities between the constitutional framers or the constitutional architects of two different countries, for example, America and India, USA and India, Thomas Jefferson and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. There's so many similarities and so many issues that we can still contest. There is issue of historical relevance to us. But not only this, along with that, there were many things which are very interesting to taste, that any country, if it is grateful, if at all, to any of its book, then it should be the constitution of this country. But factually speaking, Indian Constitution is the longest written constitution. Now, why it was necessary? Now, because if it was not debated and discussed, the labor of 3 years, roughly, and moreover, the debates which were there talks about the social inclusion, religious freedom, freedom in the sense that it makes it very secular. Third one, it talks about liberty, equality, and fraternity, and justice. More so, justice that is of all kinds, you see. Whereas, in case of having declaration of rights, for any other countries in Europe or in America, it was a different situation altogether. Even for that matter, the right to franchise was a matter to be debated and discussed. It was debated elsewhere, but, it was in the Constituent Assembly that we made it very clear. So therefore, if at all, sometimes, the argument, or sometimes if there is a biased argument which say that it is a long constitution, it is the longest constitution, because it has made everything clear, and it had taken the examples of various places also that they were there. For example, right of voting, the right of franchise to women section of the society. There was a bloody war fought in the United Kingdom and even in the European history. The women section of the society had fought a bloody war, They laid out their life just for the right to vote, whereas it was granted by debate, by discussion in the Constituent Assembly. So there were some salient features, but anyway, I will not deviate, but let me just make my other point, because otherwise I will lose out on the time. So there are ample amount of archival material still available to elaborate the study, to examine the versions and aspirations of the people. There were demands of the people. And not only this, that there were people's aspirations were also taken into account. And there was that Anit Shani has also talked about from the archival material that people gave their own versions of Constitution of India. Of course, it was not acceptable at that point of time, until and unless it is debated in the Constituent Assembly and it is adopted. The most interesting part of this was the last speech which Dr. Ambedkar delivers while the draft was placed. Now, how it happened, and now I'm just making some stories short by saying that some of the members of the Constituent Assembly who were guided by their own religious ethos and ideas were arguing only those points which Dr. Ambedkar had to categorically refute it out by putting arguments in favor of the legal jurisprudence, the social development, and also in the form of the frame which he says that it does not guarantee the Constitution will guarantee you this, but it will not guarantee you to do X, Y, Z, which is very clear. That it is secular, that it means that it guarantees, it respects all religion, its practices, but not in the public domain, but in the private domain. So therefore, if somebody says that how to start, how to begin the Constitution itself, from where do you start? That very beginning, that can it be in the name of God, can it be in the name of Jesus, can it be in the name of Allah, or wherever it is, or as per the norms of the religion. But the Constitution starts with we, the people of this country. So it is the debate is basically for whom we are debating. It is the people who are debating for themselves to have their own document in the form of a constitution. And therefore, to start and to say that we, the people are important here. And we start for whom? We start for ourselves. How we are delivering it for the people? By debating it with the ideas and aspirations of the people. And then to whom we are doing it? To whom we are offering it? To the people again. Now let's see, because Dr. Ambedkar, while arguing, he argued many points, and he started from, he took the examples of Metcalfe and other philosophers, including Lasky and other quotes which he was, in most of the Constituent Assembly debate, he had referred to most of these people, particularly the scholars and philosophers of that time, starting from John Dewey to James Metcalfe to John Stuart, J.S. Mill. The Mill's concept of economic equality or the exploitation of the people and all that he has taken into account while he talks about justice, that economic justice is equally important as much as social justice. The concept which he takes it from J.S. Mill's, that particular volume which was published. And even for that matter, he has made it other issues, particularly the George Washington's and other people's discussion at that point of time. So, frankly speaking, when we say that the debates, sometimes they were narrowed down, but it was the acumen of the Dr. Ambedkar that he made it clear that he does not get deviated by the narrow arguments which people were raising, but he made it very clear. Now, coming to the very iconic speech, and I must compare this to important speeches in the Constituent Assembly. Now, we all know that we remember Dr. Ambedkar for this 25th November 1949 speech, which he is again warning. But prior to that, we had another speech which was delivered by the first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. It is also known as an iconic speech like Dr. Ambedkar. But by going by most of the analysis, we realized that the speech of 25th November 1949 had outnumbered, it had become more iconic than the iconic speech of the 15th August 1947 of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, which is basically the tryst with the destiny. That now how these two speeches and how the speeches in the Constituent Assembly can be debated now. Well, looking at the substance that we gather from the archival material and from the Constituent Assembly debates material, we realize that the debates of the Constituent Assembly were considering the future of India, whereas the 15th August 1947 iconic speech of Tryst with Destiny talks about the idea that what lies with the future of Indian Republic. Whereas the aspirations of 25th November 1949 does not limit with the existence as such, but it has infinite value to continue because it tells and warns about the value system that a democratic institution can talk about, can be evaluated. So therefore, you see, this particular issue, which I am just trying to bring it to the notice of the people, is that two important points which I can say. One is why there is a warning. Why this Ibn Khaldun role Dr. Ambedkar is playing of warning the Republic. Now this is where it is very interesting. The Kitab that is one interesting book that in that he talks about. But there are John Story, who was the one who ruled the arguments in the United States Supreme Court, and his arguments were always considered supreme. But Dr. Ambedkar's arguments in the Constituent Assembly can also be equated with him. Now, in this case, now the last warning which is stated that how can there be, how can we have two different institutions go on together? Then what for the whole Constituent Assembly and what for is the whole argument? Why we are discussing, why we are sitting, why we are burning midnight oil, why we are toiling hard. And that's where he says that you cannot have two different Indias to exist. It can either be based on liberty, equality, and fraternity, or it can only have a republic which will have justice of all kinds, socio-economic and political justice. And that is where his preamble, which he dedicates to the people of this country, he says that this is not just the preamble of the Constitution of this India, it is the aspirations of the people of this country for which we have debated, for which we have adopted. And you see, and the last motion when he submits to the Constituent Assembly and he moves it, and he says that the motion which is passed, which he moves on 25th November 1949, that he says, because in that constituent, in the draft of the Constitution, most of these points which he has talked about, including preamble, including the directive principles of the state policy, including the various articles which are protecting and preserving the rights and the privileges of the people. And he says that the motion of Dr. Ambedkar, and I quote, that the Constitution as settled by the Constituent Assembly be passed. And he moves a one-line resolution on 25th November. And he says that how we have settled it, it is settled through the process of argumentation. It is settled with considering the aspirations of the people, including from the margins of the society, including from the persons who were the privileged society, including from the women sections which were deprived historically, including from the persons who were economically not strong. And therefore, he says that the Constitution as settled by the Constituent Assembly be passed. And that motion, when he was passed, and then it was adopted unanimously. Therefore, there are two distinctions, you see. The first distinction is that the draft of the Indian Constitution, as it was considered by many people. Now, let me bring it to the notice that too many contestations are there. Now, I have just brought it to your notice, the whole historical frame from the Cabinet Mission Plan to the last. But I'll go back to, now, what is this? What were the contestations? One, that people say that it is somebody from the elites, their elitist idea have been enforced upon the people, which the debates of the Constituent Assembly refutes it null and void and makes it very clear that no, it is nowhere from the elites and the elitist ideas which were brought into Constituent Assembly and it was passed. No, it was a whole argument. It was a whole debate of ample time, where starting from the objective resolution to the adoption of the draft Constitution. So the claim which can be refuted that no, it was the elitist idea, it was the elitist concept, it was brought to the people just when it was enforced on the people, is therefore stand refuted. Second important point, which people say that there is somebody XYZ was the one who was responsible for formation of Indian Constitution, going by the debate and the dates and the chronology which is brought to the public and the evidences which are there in the form of volumes and the scholars' work also makes it clear that the irrefutable claim of authorship goes to Dr. Ambedkar and nobody else. Third important point which needs, and there are the contestations on this point, that every document, whether it is for the purpose of governance, whether it is for the purpose of administration, needs carpeting and certain flexibility. Indian constitution of this country, Constitution of India, has been made most flexible in the form that it has been amended. In fact, the first amendment was passed while in 1951 itself, and by the resolution passed by the first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So to say that it was a rigid, to say that it was enforced from the top, to say that the claim of it, the drafting goes elsewhere, therefore they do not stand with much of substance. That most of the contestation which stand today are very clear today that the irrefutable authorship goes to Dr. Ambedkar for the voluminous work that he has done. And let me bring it to a notice that the political relationship. Now, how can the contest people say, and there is always a contest going on, that it was he who was not very acknowledging the fact about the Congress, and Congress did not acknowledge it. Let me bring it to the notice of everyone that it is his laborious work and his statesmanship was a real game changer for his relationship even with the party in power then. And that is how it mattered most. And his contribution while he was delivering and talking about, while he given the draft constitution, it was while he concluded his talk and he warned the people, warned the republic that if it happens in ultra wires, if it happens in a contrary directions, if it goes into felonious hands, what will happen? All these warnings, he did it. Now the point is very clear now that what made it change, how his relationship with the then Prime Minister and then the Congress changed. Because he ensured that most of the points which he debated had almost rapturous applause. While he was arguing, all the Constituent Assembly members were spellbound when he put up his arguments. And when he argued that India can stand supreme only with the notion that Indianness, particularly what he has talked in the preamble of this constitution, that it is the first constitution of the world which is declared by the people to themselves. Whereas as other cases, whether you take the example of the oldest constitution of maybe of the Switzerland, or even the 1787 Constitution, American Constitution, or even the Constitution of the other countries in the world. But the point is, this Constitution which he says that it is for the people, by the people, of the people, which he has taken it from the concept of Abraham Lincoln's concept of democracy. And therefore, so his political leadership, one, his statesmanship, his linguistic skills that he made, ensuring that it is brought into the draft of this constitution, had ensured that all the feelings, all the naysayers of the Congress party also become yes. And while he was submitting this, he got a thunderous applause in the Constituent Assembly. And that is how the whole history talks about. So what really changed the issue, what really acted as a game changer, was real scholarship of Dr. Ambedkar in drafting this constitution. That was the game changer, and that is how we must need to accept it now. Because let there be the superfluous contestation go on simultaneously. But let us go back to the substances which are available. Let us go back to the evidences which are there before us to refute those contestations. Now, let me state with full authority that, that even the aspirations of even the Supreme Court Bar Aspiration President, then L.M. Singhvi in 1969, when he also talked about the importance of law and how the legal system brought to the people, so that the law becomes respectable and the legal system become important, how the judiciary become more respected. His apprehensions are also taken into account by Dr. Ambedkar, and by virtue of that he put judiciary on the top of all organs of the democracy. And the Constitution provides the framework for it. So all his aspirations which he is aspiring it to provide, for the people that, that everything should go according to the doctrine which is framed for the people, by the people, of the people, is again which is dedicated to the people of this country, by we the people. That is how this Constitution makes it very clear. So the people and the making of this Constitution, because even the Ornit Shani also talks about that this very issue, that when we say that after Lord Birkenhead's association with us, that he said that if these people come up with their own Constitution, it will be good for them, and earlier the better. But many times we'll realize that there were so many things which at times people have considered his statements in a more lighter way. That, see, sometimes he had to act as a hack while drafting the Constitution. Sometimes he was acting as authority. That is his skill, Many issues which were important, sometimes he wanted that the land has to be naturalized. And same he was talking about on the other issues, which was not accepted in the first place. But then, sometimes, because of that agony that until and unless the land is nationalized, the economic equality could not be ascertained at the earliest possible. And the better it is if it was done earlier. But then, since it was not accepted at time, even he got agonized, and he said that I would be the first person probably to burn the document, not the Constitution of this country, the document. Now here, because of that issue, many times people will say that no, he was the one, he was not agreeing to the Constitution of it. It's a very superfluous argument to say that only on some occasion he had stated like this. But while he wants on 25th November 1949 that we cannot have two different contestations at one time. You cannot exist if there is no equality in society. So that's what he said, that on 26th January 1950, when we enter into an era of contradiction, that in political life we will have equality by virtue of one man, one vote, one value, but we will deny with the same in our social domain. So that's what, he says that, how long this kind of inequality be allowed to persist? How can we have social inequality and political equality? How long we shall continue to allow this contradiction? And therefore he says that people who suffer from this inequality or the tyranny of inequality will blow this structure which we have laboriously built. And that's why, that's a warning which we also need to take into account. I think what I want to say while I make my last point is that, that Constituent Assembly debates are the one which are basically the aspirations of the people. The contribution of Dr. Ambedkar, they are pivotal to the making of the Constitution of this Indian country. Thirdly, that, while we are still remembering our Constitution Day, we need to remember it with the letter and the spirit for which the framers of the Constitution had envisaged. And the last important point which I want to make here is that there are many people in many nations, they still remember and celebrate this. But, we still need to remember that the successful democratic transition in this country could not have been possible without the well-doctrinized, drafted Constitution. But now the question is whether, going by the very theory of democracy, whether it is really real transition has taken place. But, when the draft was ready and when it was brought in, when it was enacted, when it was brought into force, the famous constitutional luminary, he said that this is a document of social and economic revolution of India. Now, is it because of this there is an issue of considering Constitution of India Is it because it has been framed by Dr. Ambedkar, who was untouchable? But is it because of the Dr. Ambedkar, who was a legal luminary? It is because of because of the composition of the Constituent Assembly. They were all from the various walks of life. Is it? And they had all the virtues for it to be taken into account, all the points for its debate and discussion. So therefore, nothing could have been, nobody could have ignored this. There were issues of individual nature, but they are not part of this, while we frame it. So for example, he was alone left to do the whole arduous task, but he did not deny doing it. There was issue that not one, but we had to have two vice presidents for the Legislative Assembly and Constituent Assembly, but then he continued to work as the chairman despite various odds, despite his own health issues, Therefore, now lastly, when I say that making of Indian Constitution was not only a Herculean task, but under those prevailing circumstances, it was the best possible outcome. Under those prevailing situations, I'm underlining this. And there were many things which I can still state before, but let me have it for the debate and discussion. There were 2 points which are very interesting to state that. Now let's go back to the issues which many people have talked about, including Guha and others. But the one which basically, if you compare it with the comparative constitutions of the world and all, you will realize that American Constitution is slightly different as compared to Indian. But you see, when we say that the structure of Indian Constitution is in a way, is the most flexible structure, and therefore it allows every other thing, to be taken into account. Lastly, before I say that I am very much energized when I was going through some of the reports of the Constituent Assembly debates, and then when I was going through this, it was very interesting to tell you that that in his speeches the warnings are to be considered as a warning, not for the historical account, but for the futuristic point of view. And his warnings are still important today. They are more relevant today. And particularly when I say that his entry to the formally submitting the draft constitution, what kind of feel that he would have had, that he was not allowed to enter and now he is submitted. And secondly, that he gets a thunderous applause. And that too from the same Constituent Assembly, which was arguing on every possible point for which he was refuting their claims. So friends, I think this constitution and the making of Indian Constitution will be there for the Indians to remember, not only as a holy document or the precious document of the country, but also it will be for them to really recognize and glorify its making itself. The making is more important than the document here, and the makers and the framers of the Constitution, we need to regard them not only just because there will be Constitution that we'll be remembering, but it was really a task. And if at all today, if a supervisor of a guide will simply take away your article and say that no, it is not done properly, and he simply rejects your ideas, it would be very difficult for any scholar to really acknowledge this. But Dr. Ambedkar, as the chairman of the drafting committee, he had to take into account so many criticisms, so many arguments, so many things while he was compiling it, and taking into account their views at the same time, sometimes arguing effortlessly, sometimes arguing with too much of efforts, because he was contesting on the very orthodoxical minds at that point of time, and he was convincing them at the end of it. So I think I have made justice to what time is given to me, and I will be very happy to take few questions to you. I think that making of this Constitution of India is more valued than even the Constitution as a document itself, which we are going to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Murisa. And it is an always enriching lecture from your side, and it's really help us to understand the Constitution and the other aspects of it. Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor Karunyakara please give his remark on today's lecture.
So, thank you. On the occasion of Constitution of India Day on 26th November, we have organized this lecture, this a lecture on the Constitution in remembrance of, to celebrate the coming Constitution Day, that's Indian Constitution Day, which is on 26th November of this year, 2025. Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge organized the lecture on Constituent Assembly Debates, Making of Constitution of India, by inviting Professor Nandkishor More. Actually, it is he who suggested this topic. When I asked him to deliver a lecture, he who suggested this topic, the topic Constituent Assembly Debates, Making of Constitution of India. So very much it is, it is a pre-celebration of 26th November Constitution Day. Since Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge holds its weekly lectures of Dalit Knowledge weekly lectures only on Saturday. So whatever the very great days comes after, we do organize lectures related to those days on Saturday. Professor More has been selected, Professor More has been chosen for this lecture for simple reason that he is, though a scientist, well versed in social sciences. This I told in last lecture also. Being a historian, I have come across many great historians who are not actually by training not historians. For example, D.D. Kosambi. D.D. Kosambi is a great historian, but he was a mathematician.
Yes.
He was a trained mathematician. When I read D.D. Kosambi, I'm really surprised. I surprised to know that a mathematician who should be regarded by the all trained historians as a model historian, a great historian, D.D. Kosambi. Without D.D. Kosambi, there is no ancient history. Even the known historians like Rabindranath Tagore and many admire of D.D. Kosambi. So what I'm trying to say that, even look at the Karunyakara. Karunyakara was a scientist. He was not a political scientist. But however, he was great. He brought a book of Chamcha Yug. That is, it's again political philosophy. Baujan is again political philosophy. But Karunyakara is not a social scientist, not a political scientist. He was a natural scientist, I think.
Yeah.
So, So now, why I'm giving this background is why we have chosen Professor More, who is a environmental excuse me. He is an environmental scientist. Professor More is an excuse me, an environmental scientist. But Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge has chosen him to deliver a lecture on the occasion of 26th November, Constitution Day of India, to deliver a topic that is Constituent Assembly Debates, Making of Constitution of India. Any political scientist could have been, better person. Why the KIDK chosen the Professor Nandkishor More? Because his passion lies in the Dalit knowledge, social sciences knowledge, particularly on the Constitution and Ambedkar. So it doesn't matter what you have been trained unless you have a passion or not. You may be a historian, but how does it matter if you don't have a passion and you don't produce anything in that field of history? You may be a political scientist. How does it matter if you are a professor of a eminent university? It doesn't matter. Unless you produce, you contribute some knowledge to enrich your discipline. So Professor More not only is enriching his own discipline, environmental sciences, which we could see from his own biodata, which has been read out by the Suhas Kamalakar. So Professor More's passion lies in Constitution and Ambedkar and Dalit knowledge. The main reason why Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge has chosen him to deliver this very valuable, meaningful and purposeful lecture on this day. Thank you, Professor More, for being with us, part of this celebration of Constitution Day by the Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. And your lecture is really very enlightening and contributed a lot to the knowledge of understanding on the Constitution, how it's been made. You rightly highlighted. Nowadays on social media, particularly the WhatsApp and Facebook, some a different kind of people. I dare to call them as anti Ambedkarites, anti-Ambedkar group, or I dare to call them as casteist elements or racist elements. So these racist elements, just because of Ambedkar, a Dalit, who is the father of Indian Constitution, which is not digestible to them, and they are coming with all flimsy grounds they are quoting to portray somebody else whose name More has taken, but I don't want to take. Somebody else who happened to be a Brahmin. So they are trying to portray that Brahmin guy who is just a secretary for writing. Like, in the university meetings, Vice Chancellor is a chairman and Registrar is a secretary. Just because of Registrar is secretary doesn't mean that Registrar contributed everything to the meeting. It's like that. This I take the name of that guy, that person, Mr. Munshi. Mr. Munshi is a Brahmin guy probably from Maharashtra or Gujarat. I have
Bengal.
From me?
Bengal.
Bengal. Oh, fine, Bengal.
Yeah.
But he's very close to Gujarati lobby. He's very close to many Gujarati people. As you rightly said, he was close to MK Gandhi. So some people trying to portray that it was a Munshi who is involved in it. No, you go to the Constituent Assembly debates. Irrespective of these people trials, the racist elements who are trying to make, trying to downplay the contribution of Ambedkar, the present generation of racists, they are unable to digest what their forefathers, why our forefathers have given that a great opportunity to, historical opportunity to a Dalit. So they are unable to digest. They should understand one thing, that Ambedkar was highly educated and well educated, and he was the one and only capable person in that generation to write the Constitution of India. It was echoed not only by Indians, by the even highly acclaimed eminent scholars of those days. So we're very happy, Professor More, you are with us today, and it is very much important to inform the younger generations how much Babasaheb Ambedkar contributed for making the Constitution of India. More than belief, we need to have a scientific approach to decide scholarly contributions, which you have done. So thank you very much once again, Professor More. Thank you. And I would like to greet all of you that wish you happy Constitution Day, which we will be celebrating on 26th November. However, KIDK will be celebrating today. Wish you all the participants wish you a happy Constitution Day, remembering Ambedkar. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Professor Karunyakara sir, for your wishes. We also wish you happy Constitution Day. So now this forum is open for question answers. I already see the hand of Amit Kumar, so I request Mr. Amit Kumar to please go ahead and ask the question.
I have one thing, Amit. Yes, you will be getting your time. You are very so hurried that why you ask the question and leave the meeting? What you want to ask the question and leave meeting? What, Amit? I appreciate you. I appreciate Mr. Amit. You ask questions. I appreciate very nicely. Let it be not a stereotype. You could ask the question after asking somebody else also. So, however, I appreciate Amit. You are good that you are raising question. Yeah, carry on.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And very congratulations, Maurice sir. Very knowledgeable lecture. Sir, my name is Amit Kumar Khatik. I am a student in Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha, Masters Hindi Literature. Sir, my mind two questions. My first question, in the Constitutional Assembly, debates on the making of the Constitution of India, discussion were had on reforms of Indian social institution and social structure,
Yeah.
through which the social structure would change and social mobility would increase. Had these reform been fully implemented of from of our any inequality in our society, and despaired why and how an egalitarian society would we make how to time. And my second question, sir, I am a student in language and literature in Indian language, and I and I have studied in constitutional debates in the Constitution Assembly was on the question of language. Noam Chomsky said that
Noam Chomsky.
yes sir. Noam Chomsky, 1 minute sir. सर मैं ये कह रहा हूँ, मेरा दूसरा प्रश्न है कि
Amit, it's okay. One question is okay. You prepare that question. We can talk about that question later on. And you should open your video when you ask the question. Anybody want to ask a question? Open the video.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My second question is, sir, I am a student of Indian language and literature. I have studied that the separate debate in the Constitution Assembly was on the question of language. Noam Chomsky believed that a person now they are one mother language best. So why are we burdened with the foreign language? Our countries itself has many languages, any language, 22 language in official language in Indian society, Indian country. 75 years freedom our
It's okay, Amit, it's okay. Professor More got your point.
Yes. The first point is
Professor More, you take all the questions, you may give the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, and to Amit, I would like to ask one query. I can't ask the question to Amit. I will ask one query, Professor More, if you permit me. Of course, this lecture is yours, though I am a chairing. Lecture yours, I should not interpret. I should not. Interfere. So let me ask one query to Amit. Amit, would you open your video? Yeah, Amit, you said that English is a foreign language. You tell me what is your language? What is your language?
Sir, my language is Hindi dialects in Bundelkhandi.
Fine. Your language is Hindi. Who your family made this language Hindi? Your family is a founder of the Hindi? They formulated Hindi?
No.
Then how do you say that it's your language?
My language is Hindi. My educational language is Hindi. I am a student in Hindi literature.
Your educational language is Hindi. At home you speak Hindi because your mothers and parents speak Hindi. But my question is that not about the language. You said that that's a foreign language. and Hindi is your language. How Hindi is your language? Is your parents founded this language? Your grandparents founded your language? Your community founded your language? Who founded this language, Hindi?
The local language.
So no language is a foreign. Try to understand this. No language is foreign. Don't say that English is a foreign. No language is a foreign. Language is when you speak. If you speak English, now you have spoken English. Since you are speaking English, English is your language. If you are speaking Hindi, Hindi is your language. So no language is a foreign, right? Now, as far as your question is concerned, Professor More is a expert. He will give the answer. Yeah. Professor More, you take the questions from everyone.
Yeah.
So, is there someone else who wants to ask a question? Yeah, please, Dr. Kiran.
May I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Akash. First of all, sir, congratulations. Very nice presentation. I'm listening second time your lecture. And sir, very useful for me because of I am teaching some course like that Constitution of India and constitutionalism of Ambedkar, etc. I would like to ask you two questions. My first question is: does studying Constitution of India be made compulsory for getting graduation degree of all discipline, including medicine, engineering, etc.? What is your view on it? And second question is, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the real and chief architect of Constitution of India, but still April 14, Ambedkar Jayanti is not a national holiday like Gandhi Jayanti. Please comment on it. That is my two questions. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who want to ask a question? Please go ahead.
What about you, Akash?
Yes, I am asking, sir.
Yeah.
So, thank you. So actually, when Professor More was talking about the warnings, so few things are coming in my mind related to the warnings of Dr. Ambedkar. So first, when in warning, Professor More was saying about Dr. Ambedkar was said in the Constitution Assembly about we are entering in the life of contradiction where one man, one value of one vote. But the social and economic problems, and we are differ in the social and economic things. So still we are having the one man, one vote, sir. But does the social and economic problems which we are facing previously is still relevant and still we are facing it? And what kind of solutions we are getting from the Constitution right now? This is my first question to you. Other question where I just need a comment from you. I was reading Dr. Ambedkar's. There was a volume 1. So Dr. Ambedkar was talking about the majority related to the majority, communal majority. That if the Indian Constitution copies the British system of British system, so this Indian system going to be a communal majority. So I was very surprised by understanding what is the British system. So if you allow me, so I'll quote what Dr. Ambedkar said about that in India, the majority is a communal majority. No matter what a social and a political program it may have, the majority will retain its character and being the communal majority. Nothing can alter this fact. Given this fact, it is clear that if the British system were copied, it would result in permanent executing power in communal majority. So I was stuck in the word of the British system. So if you please, I'll be happy if you comment on this British system. Thank you. This is my two questions to you.
Very good.
I think that's more than enough. Otherwise, we will get to know.
I think
Prolonged. Yeah.
Yeah, Amit, your question is good and both questions are correct. The first question that he raised was about the issue of social inclusion and the Constitution. Yeah, because Constitution takes into account the societal aspirations, So it does not really discriminate on the part of, your status. Even if you are from the princely state and somebody is from a working community, working class, it provides equal status for both of them. So therefore, otherwise, a socially disadvantaged community will get excluded from the process of from the very democratic process, but it doesn't. The Constitution permits both of them. That's why, while Dr. Ambedkar once, he was smiling and somebody had questioned. Somebody had said that, why you are smiling too much? So he said that, today I made the equality in such a way that even the king and his slave would be treated equal. There is an argument which is between him and his assistant, at home, that he said that from tomorrow onwards, the ballot will make meaning the king will not be from the mother of the queen, but from the box of the ballot. Now that makes that inclusiveness of the Constitution, that it makes a very inclusive nature of Indian, meaning the citizens, for them to be part of the democratic process. Now there is another argument which will tell whether majority is simple majority or a communal majority, or it is just by majority. The governments are really whether taking the aspirations or not. That's a question which Akash also has raised. But I'll come to that point a little later because the British system is different. But the second point is Article 343 of our Indian Constitution provides, the privileges for all the languages, and the languages have been put into the different schedule now. And for the purpose of official execution, the language is considered as a common language, and Hindi is also considered as a language for meaning क्रियान्वयन की भाषा और राजभाषा दोनों का जो है कि see for example anybody who is in the parts of Bihar, if they have to write to a person in Tamil Nadu, so the Bihar person, if he writes in Hindi and sends it to Tamil Nadu to an officer who does not know Hindi, it may be a language of execution, official communication, but there is a common language system also. So there is a nature of, meaning we have a bilingual nature of communication nowadays, that along with the national language, we also write into English, like same for other CUET and other exams. We have English as well as Hindi. And so Article 343 provides, equal status to most of the languages, including the dialects now. Even for example, my mother tongue is Marathi. If I have to really communicate in Marathi, then I need to find a group of people who will be speaking that language. But I know that KIDK people, they are able to speak and understand English. So I'm more comfortable in English rather than speaking in my own language, which I would be very happy to speak out. But it depends on where we are using the language. Where is the application of language? Let me bring it to your notice that, Dr. Ambedkar's English vocabulary and his English presentation was so effective that even the Britishers felt amazed at times, Forget about the Constituent Assembly. Most of them had a British education, None of them had a vernacular education. The luminaries in the Constituent Assembly, all of them had a British education, English education. Thanks to Lord Macaulay, Thomas Billington Macaulay, that English became, because further thing is that
Yes, thanks to Lord Macaulay. It's wonderful. Thanks to Lord Macaulay.
Thomas Billington Macaulay.
Had there been no Lord Macaulay, being a historian, I feel to say that I'm privileged to say that had there been no Lord Macaulay, there would have been no Ambedkar. There would have been no Ambedkar. That is the history, clearly states.
No,
And
not
there are
only
some
this,
people, there are some people who are, to speak against Lord Macaulay.
we
Thank you,
acknowledge,
Thank you, More, Professor More. Wonderfully, you are contributing this lecture.
we
You are
are,
really enriching the Dalit knowledge. Thank you very much for
no,
bringing
but
this.
we acknowledge the Lord Macaulay for even IPC and the CRPC, Indian Penal Code and CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code. Because of Lord Macaulay.
Sorry for interfering. One thing I would like to say: this KIDK Foundation Day is Lord Macaulay's birthday. Akash, what is that?
So 25th of October, sir.
Yeah, 25th October, we have founded the KIDK. We have deliberately chosen 25th October, Lord Macaulay's birthday, as a foundation day of the Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge.
Yeah, we are all children of Macaulay for
Yes,
that matter.
and we proud of that. We proud of the why, because our Babasaheb Ambedkar also child of the Macaulay.
Yeah, so because of let me come back to the second important question which Dr. Kiran had raised, and it's a very good suggestion. I think we must take forward too. That, like, we have made environmental studies as a compulsory module for all the courses of studies. Now, since the government has positively announced the 26th November as a Constitution Day, they should provide a study module for all the courses of study. And it should be made compulsory. I think I would be very happy to carry forward this idea. I will see in some of the forums if I can raise it. Now, second is about the chief architect of our Constitution, as you are saying. Now, there are so many claims which I am not putting their name. I said that by speaking out on the Constituent Assembly debate and the making process itself, will make all the superfluous contestation null and void. So that is why, why I prefer to speak on this, because I was hearing so much of cacophony here and there about he has done it. Because I know the fact that having gone through, and we were one of our library, I was the chairman of one of the libraries, we brought all the debates of the Constituent Assembly in a properly bound form. They are available. So therefore, you see, this is for the now. I want to challenge all of you to say, why not some of you take up this again, the debate for a different perspective and study, and bring out your own volumes. This is one area. There is still a gray area where people have done less work. When I was really trying to find out, the numbers and the names which I have quoted, they are still minuscule. So much of literature should have come out of it. You see, which is not happened. Whereas in other cases, it's there. You see, so this is one that I don't think that there is anybody except Dr. Ambedkar can be considered as the author of the Indian Constitution. I'm saying author. Author is the authority, meaning he was so authoritative in his argument in the Constituent Assembly that he cannot be denied that authorship of the Constitution of this country. That architecture is a different nomenclature and the term that we are using. I'm using it with a single this thing, that he is the most genuine and articulate author of the Constitution of this India as an academic, I'm saying. And we are therefore, there is no challenge to this, but the point is that how people are saying it in a different tone and somehow undermining his efforts that is the historical process. People have always done it in the history of our country. Well, as I say, history has always, for me, Ambedkar studies is a more challenging subject to study, and therefore, as a student of Ambedkar studies, I still want to go through and read many other things by comparing it with the other countries and their history. It will be more enriching, Like, say, if you compare the Indian Constitution with the American Constitution and the maker of the Indian Constitution, like Dr. Ambedkar with Thomas Jefferson, and you will realize that, they had similarities and they had dissimilarities, but they were contributing with the same valor, same zeal, same enthusiasm, and they produced something. The third is, I hope, Kiran, I have done justice to what you have said, I would still go for this study. I am saying that Constitution as such as a module. Constitution can be put, like we have made Har Ghar Samvidhan one campaign, and in that we have made a very handbook of Constitution of our country, handbook, very small book, and that we distributed in the Hindi, but we want to give it to the southern part of this country, so we want to make it in English now, so that, it's a small handbook.
No, do you have those copies?
Yeah, I can show you now. If it is, just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, if those copies are there, we can distribute to Hindi-speaking people. That Constitution of India, Professor Nandkishor and his colleagues, his team, they translated, means not translated, they have made a brief of the Constitution in English, in Hindi also. So those Hindi copies, if we have, we could distribute to our, the Hindi-speaking students, so they could understand Constitution.
Actually, these are the excerpts of the Constitution got into small booklets. But since so many people come to my office, I simply keep offering them. But I'll keep on ordering them. But I will see they're very small booklets of hand size.
No, and it's by any private publisher.
No, it is one. Our Buddha Ambedkar Kalyan Association is there. One NGO, one society.
Would they like to supply a few copies to us?
I'll ask them to give 50 copies to you, small and big both.
Fine.
Yeah, that maybe since you already raised that point.
Yeah. So that it could be distributed to.
It's very small. People can keep it in your way. It's very excerpts of the Constitution, very beautiful one. But it's in Hindi right now.
No, yeah, fine. But we need in Hindi only. There are many people around. Those who could understand only Hindi. So
from 2016, we were doing something on Constitution. So as a student, I always been busy doing all this. So third question is the warning and the solutions. Dr. Akash had raised some questions. And the communal majority. Now let's see that whether Indian Republic is run by which majority? Is the majority of votes? And is whether the majority of votes takes into account the debate which was there with the Irish party, Irish Republican Party with Richmond and Dr. Ambedkar, that minority is an exclusive force. If it is not allowed to function in the normal manner, then it will explode. Similarly is the majority, you see. Communal majority in terms of like the aspirations of the community. Let's say today we say that who are the people who got majority, but whether that majority is respecting the minority? Because this is the very fundamental question in an electorate system. Dr. Ambedkar was equally careful about this. And that's the reason, while he was contesting in the Pune Pact, he was always talking about separate electorate, because the majority vote is not necessarily the aspirations of the people of this country. It is aspirations of some of those people who carry one kind of ideology. But there are, say, for example, if you go by the present electoral democracy, I say that the Indian democracy has been culminated into electoral democracy where majority vote are again based on certain calculation of the majority and minority, and the majority, even if it is one vote higher, it becomes a majority. What about the aspirations of the remaining one who are contesting that point? That's why sometimes it appears that the proportionate electorate would be important. Say, for example, some party. Now, if you look at the present example of this, one of the states of northern India, that a party who gets 22% of the vote gets 25 seats, and the party which gets 19% of the votes gets 80 seats. Had there been a proportionate electorate, then in that case, the 19% of the party would never have come to power. Because the aspirations of the people of this country in the electoral system, they are not taken into account by the majority. And that's why, they have to have a different system of, democracy is merely has come out to be probably an electoral democracy, where the vote that the higher number of votes is supposed to be given more credence than the one who does not get the equal number of votes. Or if there is a tie, and then probably we can say that so for example, tomorrow, if there is a mandate, if there is a referendum on an issue called privatization of the research national economy. And then if the 50% say that we want to have a private vote, privatization, and 50% do not want it. But there is one person who says that from 51 changes to privatization, then despite half of the public not willing to go for that opinion, still bound by the opinion which is antithetical to their own aspirations. And this Dr. Ambedkar was very much conscious that time, and he said that this majority will always be determined. It has to be determined. And he said that if the minority aspirations are not to be taken into account, and therefore we need to have a separate electorate system or dual electorate system. And that he also advocated for the reserved constituencies. Now, this is one issue that we need to talk about. But then, in case of British system of governance, now it is altogether, they have a different system now. Although we say that the Great Britain is the mother of democracy, but they take into account even every minor aspiration, you see. And that's the reason that even Rishi Sunak, despite not enjoying the whole gamut of support, since he was representing the minority of that country, which was also one of the important ideas, so he was able to take over, like Kair and all, meaning now presently. But the issue is because British has a Labour and Conservative particularly, and some are Democrats. There was after Tony Blair, no Labour party could get into in the palace of this UK. But then now we had a number of people who are coming up with the different alliances in the United Kingdom also, which is the British system of governance. So that is where I think that's where there is a debate needed to be done, that whether without establishing social democracy, we are already transformed from a political democracy to a mere electoral democracy. Political democracy provides right to franchise to equal vote, one man, one vote, one value. But then, if somebody by luring people, by allurement, if somebody is paying money to the poor voters and then buys the vote, then it is a purchase democracy. Then it's not even a communal democracy. This economic democracy, meaning the economic power will be supreme on the democratic setup. And that's where, we are all, I think we are conscious of those developments. But I think Ambedkar will be more relevant, once, there will be a crisis of resources. Then second, when there will be crisis of economic aspirations. And third, when the social inequality will reach to its peak. I think under these three situations, Ambedkar will become more relevant, and then probably there will be forces of change will probably bring into force, and then probably there will be some changes. The same changes will also be ensured by the Constitution, and they will go for their own, formation of their own structure, which will again be formed by the very guidance of the Constitution of this country. I think I hope, is it correct what I'm trying to say to you? Not always I will be saying it with everything. Sometimes I will use common sense. So I bank on your comments also.
No, it's correct. It's correct. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for question answer session. And with the permission of chair, can we go for vote of thanks, sir? Yeah, thank you. With the permission of chair, we have to move toward our vote of thanks. So I request Mr. Shashikant Sambodhi to please deliver his vote of thanks.
Thank you, my dear friend. On behalf of KIDK, Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, I warmly thank Professor L. Karunyakara, sir, a respected Dalit historian and Ambedkarite thinker, for kindly chairing today's session. We are also deeply thankful to Professor N.K. More, sir, School of Earth and Environmental Science, BBA Lucknow, for his very inspiring and thought-provoking lecture on Constituent Assembly debates, making of the Constitution of India. Our sincere thanks to all the participants and attendees of the 24th online lecture in the KIDK lecture series. Special thanks to our coordinators, Dr. Sukeshni, Dr. Darshana Mishram, Dr. Smita Bhagat, Mr. Akash Khobragade, Mr. Shreyat, and Mr. Vijay for their continuous effort and supporting in making this session successful. This lecture series started on Ambedkar Jayanti 2025, continues to spread knowledge and new ideas in the field of Dalit studies. Also thank to Ms. Suhas Kamlakar for introducing our guest. And this lecture series started on Ambedkar Jayanti 2025, continues to spread knowledge and new ideas in the field of Dalit studies. Thank you once again to everyone for your valuable participation. And before we close, please don't forget to subscribe to the Dalit Knowledge YouTube channel, where this recorded session will be uploaded soon.